Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back to Will's Twin Towers podcast. As you can see, we're flying solo tonight, guys. Unfortunately for us, Tim is having some issues in Indiana. They've got some bad weather out there, and his power went out. So he's not able to be with us tonight. It's just me. So I hate to break it to you guys, but it's just me tonight. So we got a good show, though. We got a lot of talking points to go through. As you guys know, we're coming off the unfortunate loss to the Colts this past weekend, and we'll get into that a little bit. But also, we got a good opportunity to even the ship here against the Rams. So we'll see how it goes. We'll get into that also a little bit later. But we appreciate you guys all being here as always. Before we get going, just a quick reminder to please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can follow us all on X or Twitter. Obviously, the name of the channel here and our executive producer at Barroom Network is Aldo Gandia. You can follow me at _Jeff Willis, and you can follow our ghost that is unavailable on the feed here tonight. He is at Tim Willis 24. So just let's dig into the past game a little bit real quick here, guys. I don't want to go too far into it, but there's a lot of mixed reviews, I feel like, about the performance of the Bears in that game. The offense is obviously still struggling. I think we all saw the run game is still having some serious problems. And it's an unfortunate reality that they can't get this thing going with a rookie quarterback, especially considering the fact that they forced him to throw the ball. I think he had 52 pass attempts, if I'm not mistaken, in this past game, and he dropped back more times than that, obviously. So it's just an unfortunate reality that we're thrusting our rookie quarterback into right now. I really wish we could right the ship in that respect and kind of get the run game boosted a little bit. One thing you guys know, if Tim was on the show right now, he'd be screaming for it. And I have to tend to agree with him in this regard, as the way things are going right now, is they got to get Khalil Herbert more involved in this offense. I mean, you can't. It was weird in Waldron's press conference. I want to get into his press conference a little bit more later too, but it was interesting to me in his press conference that they mentioned in the game plan for this past weekend against Indianapolis that, I'm blanking on his name. Khalil Herbert was the intended guy for a goal line situation, short yardage up in the red zone area, which is interesting to me because it seemed like they used Roschon more that way, obviously early in the game. And I think they anticipated using him more early in the game. As they've mentioned in the past, he was in like a ramp-up period because he did have an injury for a while there, and it kept him out for most of camp. But he's supposedly healthy now, and he's been practicing in full, and he obviously got some good play time on Sunday, and he played pretty well. So, I'm interested to see his development also in this phase because he looked a lot better to me on Sunday than he did at any point last year, in my personal opinion. I felt like he ran a ball with authority, which he always does. He looked really good in the pass game. It was really nice to see him get involved the way he did. But I do, like I said, though, Tim would be screaming about this. And I do think that Khalil Herbert needs to get some more touches here, not just like in the red zone area. The guy thrives when he has an opportunity between the tackles and they need yardage to gain. We talked about this at length in the past. The reason they brought in DeAndre Swift in the first place is because Khalil Herbert, in my opinion, is because he lacks that certain dynamic element, that speed factor that DeAndre Swift has. You guys have heard me say this multiple times. You'd see Khalil Herbert bounce off these big runs down the sideline, and then he'd get tackled at like the 2 or 3 yard line. It's happened on more than one occasion because he just doesn't have quite that breakaway speed that some of the other backs did. That's why he was a 6th-round draft pick or 7th-round draft pick. I can't remember now for whatever reason, but he was a late-round guy, and that's why. So in any case, I do think that really both those guys, Roschon and Khalil Herbert, need to get some more touches, and they need to get Swift and keep Swift involved, obviously, but you can't use him as I think he had like an 80% snap count in the first game of the season, which is absurd. And obviously it's lowered ever since that point because the other guys are getting more involved now. But like I said, they still need to get more touches. And I think what they have to do is an unfortunate reality for an $8 million player is they got to take some touches from him to get the offense going a little bit, because I think the other two guys offer something that this team needs right now, because let's be honest, the offensive line is not run blocked nearly as well as they had last year. So they need guys who can get those tough yards right now, so you're not in 3rd and long situations all the time. You can run the ball on 3rd down if it's 3rd and 2. You can run the ball potentially if it's 3rd and 3. You're not doing that on 3rd and 7. So my point is here is you got to get some positive yardage once in a while, and you can't be losing 12 yards on a run play at the goal line. And I'll get into that a little bit more later too. But it's just, like I said, they got to find more balance with this, because like I said, the offensive line just is not, they're not playing as well in the run game as they did last year. They're not getting the push that they did last year. And if you guys watch CHGO at all, they had Brian Baldinger on again this week. They usually have him on about once a week. And he was talking about Darnell Wright. And he mentioned that he just does not look like he has quite the power that he had last year. And, obviously this back injury came up recently with Wright now that he's got apparently. And he's still, I guess he's practicing and he's supposed to be playing, but I get, if he's got a back injury, that would certainly make sense to why he wouldn't have the kind of power that he did last year if it's affecting him. So if that's an unfortunate reality for this season, he's going to fight through it, because, that's the kind of player he is from what we've seen. I would anticipate him to do that. So if that is the case, then we might not run the ball as effectively this year as we thought we would. So that's just an unfortunate reality. And, that being said, I still think we can't expect our quarterback to throw the ball 50 times a game. He's a rookie. We can't do that to him. Even if you want him to learn, that's not going to help his cause, especially when you got to win. I mean, that's another thing, is they need to win this year. So if you want to do that and accomplish that goal where you're a potential playoff team winning games, you can't have your rookie quarterback throwing the ball 50 times a week, even if he's a very quick learner, which in my opinion, I feel like he's progressed very well in the first 3 games. I think, he did some really good things in this past game that I was impressed with. Caleb did. I felt like he played better. He finally connected on some of those deep shots we've been hoping to see him connect on. Obviously, there's still some misses. There's some poor decisions in there, but I feel like he's seeing the field well. And I just like the way, like I said, I like the way he's progressing. He's doing well in that regard. So yeah, I feel like we're seeing progress offensively, but it's coming at the cost of your quarterback throwing the ball, like I said, 50 times. And that's not something we want to see. And I don't think that's something that's helpful to his development. And although it has on the screen here, after being told how many times he threw the ball, this was in a press conference he had this week. Caleb responded, "I threw it 52 times. Geez." So he didn't even realize he threw it that many times. Actually, that might have been the post-game interview, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, he was surprised that he even thrown it that many times. And when he heard that stat, it probably made him think like, wow, why am I throwing the ball that many times? At least I would think that, And, they did, I think they had like 90 something plays, which is a lot. So, I mean, I can understand having a ton of plays, you're going to have more passes in a game like that, but over 50, and you only ran the ball, I think it was 28 times. That's just not that. I don't understand how that works. So you gotta get more. My numbers are probably a little off there, but they threw it substantially more times than they ran it. And, it was really a 1-score game. So I don't understand why. And at the end there, they had to obviously start to air it out more because they got behind by a couple scores. But for the most part, during that game, Anthony Richardson was really trying to give the game away for the Colts. I mean, he threw just one really terrible interception. And then there was just a couple plays in there that really, some throws that were really far off. That just, the guy's just not a polished passer right now. And I told you guys that last week. And fortunately, they did stop him pretty well running the football. But Jonathan Taylor, I mean, they couldn't. There was a couple plays where they just could not stop him at all, and it totally broke the game open. And that's another thing too. As well as the Bears stopped the run last year on defense, they haven't stopped it quite as well this year. I mean, it still looked good for the most part, but they're still getting gashed every once in a while like this. And it's obviously not beneficial to their overall metrics and all that. And obviously not good for the game plan, not good for the game. So you're giving up big runs like that to Jonathan Taylor, and he puts it in the end zone there for 6. That's, now you're really getting behind, because if you can't stop the run on defense, now that's going to open up their play action game. And if Anthony Richardson can actually hit some throws downfield, which we've seen he can do, that's a real problem. Fortunately for them, that wasn't the case, but they did get the one. They got the one to Alec Pierce, and it was a big one down the field. So Jalen on that play, I don't know if you guys saw that, by the way, but Jalen Johnson was in coverage on that play. And I know I'm kind of going everywhere right now, guys, so I apologize for that. But I just kind of trying to recap some of the stuff from the game. But anyways, Jalen Johnson on that play got beat by Alec Pierce, and he was talking about how he didn't feel like he got beat by Pierce on the play. He felt like he beat himself on it. And I can't remember if that was in a press conference or if it was on his interview with 670 Score on, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday morning. It was on one of the, I believe it was then. I don't think it was in a press conference, because I don't think he's been in a presser for a while. But, he said he felt like he beat himself on that play. And, I'm not going to speak for him, but, we all know that Jalen Johnson is one of the best cover corners in the league. So if he's saying he doesn't feel like the receiver beat him, and he feels like he beat himself by what he did or the play he made, I tend to, side with him on that. But it was still an unfortunate big play. So it kind of, obviously hurt him. It hurt him a lot. So the defense is, again, though, the defense has played so well throughout the course of the first 3 games of the year that they're keeping the Bears in every single game. They've all been 1-score games. So you got to get to a point now where you're mustering up more offense. And yes, they had the 2 touchdown passes. They were late in the game where they were forced to throw the ball because they were starting to get behind. But there were nice plays. And like I said, I really liked the 2 deep shots they got to Rome. Those are both beautiful. Oh, man, the first one, the one down the sideline, and I can't remember exactly what the play was. I believe he was escaping. No, he stepped up in the pocket on that throw. It was just a nice, clean pocket, and he delivers his ball down the sideline. Just a perfect throw, right on the money, and connected with his number 1 receiver, or the other number 1 pick receiver, I should say. So they're trying to develop a connection. It seems like they're starting to. And like I said, he made a really nice throw on that. Rome came down with a strong play, because it was the defender was right there, and he was still able to come down with the ball. Like I said, it was a perfect throw, though. So that was a nice play. And then the over route that he threw to him later on in the game, it was open. It was a nice, throw towards the sideline. It's just a beautiful throw right on the money. Same thing. Both these throws with touch. So this guy, we've seen that Caleb he can make these throws. We saw him do it in college. So it's nice to see him finally starting to do it now when we're into week 3 now. So now going into week 4. So what I want to see continuing going forward is to keep, that progress, keep going. They've got a tough test coming up this week. Sean McVay is, in my opinion, if he's not the best coach in the league, he's for sure top 3 or 4. So he's a definite. He's going to make things hard on this defense. He's going to stress the defense, because that's what he does as an offensive mind. He's always found ways to make it work. They just beat San Francisco last week. They came from behind. They were down by, I think it was 10 points in 4th quarter, and they came back and won. So, and Aldo puts on the screen here, despite all of the Rams' injuries, they overcame an uphill battle by defeating rival San Francisco 27-24. So, again, let's keep in mind that they're going to find ways to get things done, even without their top 2 receivers, Cooper Kupp and, unfortunately, Puka Nacua, who's on my fantasy team, who's, by the way, let's not even get started on my fantasy team. I got ravaged by injuries after week 1. So, anyways, speaking of which, they're down their 2 guys. They still have Matt Stafford, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We're talking about a situation here where, again, they just beat the Niners, one of the best teams in the league. Now, again, this is a division rival. They play them twice a year. So it's obviously they're going to see each other again, and they have some familiarity there. So those things do happen, but still, that's a good team they just beat. And they're withered down to like 3 offensive linemen are out now. So we're talking about a situation where the Bears can get some push up front defensively. And I think they can cover well enough on the back end, obviously, when they're down their 2 starting receivers, that we should be able to have an advantage on defense. But we're talking about Sean McVay, one of the best offensive minds in the league, if not the best offensive mind in the league. So they're going to find ways to get guys open. I think the hits principle is really going to come into play this week, because if they do decide to get, just kind of dink and dunk it a little bit against this defense, the pursuit's going to be a big deal. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to see how the defensive line continues to progress. I've really liked the way they've looked early this season. I think Jervon Dexter really has actually made a step on the grass. We talked about it at length before the season, that he looked in great shape. He'd been doing, he'd been looking good in camp with the pads off. He's lean and fast and all these things. And we had talked about how year 2, we should see a big jump from a defensive lineman. And he had all the intangibles. He's got, obviously the tangible things too, like the length and the strength. He's got all that stuff for an interior rushman. So the fact that he's got the 2 sacks now through 3 games, and he damn near should have had a 3rd one in this past game. He almost did. So he's really, to me, he's really showing a lot. He's, as many people said in the past, he's still a little inconsistent with some things, getting consistent pressure, getting consistent push, getting consistent pad level. Those are all an issue for him sometimes, but he's looked really good this year so far. And I'm really looking forward to see how he continues to progress. So Foster mentions that Rams defense is 31st in the league. So this is another opportunity on the other side of the football now for the offense. With the Bears here, we're looking at a situation where, again, we need to get the run game going a little bit. Well, unfortunately for the Bears, the Rams have a pretty damn good defensive line. 2 of their best players were their 2 first draft picks this past year. First rounder Jared Verse from Florida State. If you guys watched the show before the draft, we talked about Jared Verse a little bit, maybe a little bit more than a little bit. We talked about him relatively often because he did seem to be like a fit for the Bears defense. He has that length, he's good at stopping the run, and he's got, he's very advanced pass rush arsenal already. And as Aldo has on his screen here, he's got 13 pressures on opposing quarterbacks already this rookie season through 3 games. The Rams defense has 54 pressures while facing the Detroit Lions, Cardinals, and 49ers offensive lines. And as we know, the Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the league. So the Rams defensive line is good, guys. The other guy they drafted, I believe it was in the 2nd round, was Braden Fisk. I believe they were line mates, if I'm not mistaken, at Florida State. So those guys are playing well together right now. As Aldo's got on the screen here, this graphic for the depth chart for the Rams. Thank you, Aldo, for that. Yeah, defensive end Braden Fisk is on one side. And these guys run a 3-man front, by the way. So Jared Verse will play linebacker a lot of times. He'll be coming up from a 2-point stance. They're not like the Bears who run that 4-man front. So this presents a different opportunity for the Bears also offensively to get a different look like this than they have during practice. So the scout team is obviously busy this week trying to prep for the Rams. But to get back to the depth chart here, Braden Fisk is their defensive end rookie, like I mentioned. Kobe Turner is another one of the defensive tackles. He's a 3-tech. And the nose tackle would be Bobby Brown. I don't know. Actually, he might not be a 3-tech. I'm sorry. This is a 3-man front. So he's just one of their defensive tackles. The nose tackle, the big guy is Bobby Brown III. Ernest Jones is a good linebacker. Byron Young, good linebacker. Cameron Curl, he was a early draft pick recently. Cameron Kitchens is a rookie this season. He was drafted out of Miami, 3rd round, I believe. Bears brought him in for a visit. They liked him as well. Tre'Davious White, good nickel or a good right corner there. And Kyron Williams is their punt returner as well as their number 1 running back. So that's their special teams return team there. And Ronnie Rivers, kick returner, Alex Ward, long snapper. Hopefully, we're just really looking at to stop on their special teams wise. We're really just looking to stop Kyron Williams from any big time returns. This guy's a good player. He played in Notre Dame. I've seen him a lot in college because of that. And even though he didn't test very well at the combine, it was kind of obvious to a lot of people who watched him play that he was going to be good. And so I'm not surprised to see what he's done in the league, even though he was kind of a late round draft pick. But they do have a good defense. And as Foster says, their front 7 is solid enough. Their weaknesses in the back end. And I tend to agree with you on that. You got some young players in there. So the Trey Davis-White is the one guy who's been around for a little while, but he's a pretty good player. But I do tend to agree with you. There's an opportunity there for the offense to get going. At least, the passing game should have some chances here. And that's the one, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but that's another unfortunate reality here, is that this matchup in my opinion, does not present us with a great opportunity to run the football against this team. We're going to have to throw the ball. And so my hope is, if they do hope to establish their run, they do so by a little less of the cuteness, I guess we could say, and a little more of just like, well, let's show it. Let's bring in extra blockers, not try to hide what we're doing, and just do it. And then, when they keep doing it over and over again and they have some success with it, then bam, you hit them with some play action out of it, running those same looks. In my opinion, that's what you could do. So I think it could work well for them. So Cliff mentions it's another 50-50 game. He hopes the Bears play their way. Talent suggests they can play the way their talent suggests they can. And I tend to agree with you there, because the pieces, as we've talked about before, have been there. Offensive line obviously is an issue. As Aldo had on the screen here, the Bears are averaging just 72.7 yards per game in the run game. Part of that is the offensive line. Against the Colts, the Bears, as he says here, the Bears ran 28 times for 63 yards and 2.3 per carry average. So that's obviously abysmal numbers there, guys. They got to run the ball better. And so, again, this defense poses an issue with that because their defensive line is so good. So my hope is, again, like I said, don't try to get too cute with it. Just, try to just execute. As simple as that. Just put it out there, get some extra blockers out there, show them you're going to run the ball, get Khalil Herbert in there, get Roschon Johnson in there, and let them pound the rock. If you got to, if you got to get away from a little bit of the outside zone, to run some duo or whatever, then do it. You got to get the run game going somehow. And it's going to be hard to do in this game, but you have to do it. You have to at least establish it so you can work the pass game. Otherwise, they're just going to key on it. And again, who wants to see our rookie quarterback throw it 50 times again? Because I don't think that's good for him. Maybe he learns the hard way that way, but at what cost? We might lose games that way. We already lost a game when he threw 50 passes. So, and it's not because he threw 50 passes, but again, it's a lot of things combined. So he looked good. Like I said to you earlier, I felt like Caleb looked pretty good. I'll talk about, more of how I feel about him in a second, because I meant to do so earlier and I forgot. But, in relation to this game, this is another opportunity for him to continue getting better and to continue to improve. And I think this is a chance for them to really build upon something that has started to look pretty good. The passing game is getting to that point, in my opinion. There's still some bad decisions from Caleb, like I said, but they're starting to connect on those things that they weren't connecting on before. And there's also, you're seeing him, he's when he's got that first read, he's getting it, he's hitting it. And it's, he's on time, he's accurate for the most part. Like I said, he's missed some downfield shots, but pretty much in the middle of the field, on the short passes, he's so accurate. His release is so quick on those plays that they typically result in a decent enough play, if not, a good pickup. So I just feel like they need to find a way to get more balance. But at the same time, you do still want to see him throw the football. Not a lot, but, 30 times a game would be fine with me. You still want to see him getting opportunities to make plays. And again, going back to the last game, and I know I'm kind of jumping around here, guys. I'm not trying to do that, but I meant to talk about this stuff earlier, and it kind of spaced my mind. In the last game, we all kind of talked about the issues with the offense, and there was some talk about play calling. There was some talk about the fact that they can't run the ball. There was some talk about some mistakes. There were some people who said that Caleb didn't play very well. And in all honesty, there's a little bit of truth to all of that stuff. It's just a fact of the matter. But and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here because so many people have talked about it. But that goal line series where they decided to run that speed option play on 4th and goal at the 1 yard line. I just cannot for the life of me understand why on earth we would do that. Why on earth would they do that? Because in my opinion, I look at it like this. Okay, so obviously if you bunch everybody up, get a bunch of big bodies in there, put in Khalil Herbert or Roshan Johnson, you play under center, you're most likely going to run the football in that scenario, right? Okay, so let's say you do, the defense knows this, and you don't get the yard because they get good penetration and stop you. I can live with that. I'm going to be mad at the players for not executing because they should be able to pick up a damn yard, if I'm the coach anyways. However, if you're doing something like Waldron's doing, which I'm trying to put myself in his shoes, if you're doing that play, speed option on 4th down from the 1 yard line, and you lose 12 yards on it, how can you live with that? You look dumb. You're obviously going to get criticism for that. I do not understand that for the life of me. And you guys know I was on board with Sane Waldron hiring. I like Sane Waldron. I think he did really good things in Seattle. I know that some people didn't like him as much. Obviously, Jackson Smith-Njigba didn't care for him much. And if you guys watch CHGO, you know what I'm talking about. But Waldron, there's some issues here with this offense. Obviously, he's at the top, so he holds some blame here, a lot of the blame. And the play calling, with some good and some bad, by the way. There's been some good play calling and there's some good designs. But some of these calls and these critical moments, I just do not understand them. Some of these personnel decisions, I do not understand them. And I think it's a matter of, honestly, I think it's a matter that he just does not realize who his personnel is yet. And that's unfortunate because we're in week 3 now. You had all of training camp to figure out what you had, what your guys were good at. You had film study from last year to see what these guys on this team could do. How is it taking this long to really figure out your personnel decisions and your play calling? I understand, again, defenses are ahead of offenses early in the season. We know that. But I still don't get how you can't get more success running the ball. You can't figure out how to block anybody up front. You are making play calls like that speed option on 4th and goal from the 1 yard line. I don't understand how this stuff happens. Like, what is the thought process here with this stuff? Why is Cole Kmet in the first game of the season significantly outsnapped by Gerald Everett? You had a whole year of tape to see that Cole Kmet, what he could do in your run game and in your pass game. You've had all of training camp to see it, how well Cole Kmet looks, how fast he's gotten. He's shown it on tape in preseason. How are we not realizing that it makes more sense to have him in the game more right away? Why did it take him to week 2 and week 3 to finally get his snap count up to where it should be? Don't understand that. We talked about this earlier in the show, I did. And Tim's talked about this many times before too. Why has it taken this long to realize we got to get Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert more involved? Khalil Herbert still ain't getting involved much. He's getting like 6 snaps a game. And definitely not 6 carries a game. He got 1 touchdown. He was the first touchdown they scored this season in the red zone. So, and that tells me that it was a short yardage situation too. It was like a 2nd or 3rd and goal, I think. But that tells me that it's not just this week that was the game plan this past week for him to be in those situations. It seems to me like the plan was to kind of be in those situations in the first place. So why we're doing it this way, again, how do you not realize more what you have in your room by now to the point where you're still trying to figure this out? And anybody who's paid attention to this team for the past 2 years, can see that Khalil Herbert is good between tackles runner. And obviously, I'm not going to be the kind of advocate for the guy as Tim is. I like the player, and I understand you signed a guy for $8 million, and you have another draft pick in your building that you actually drafted, not Khalil Herbert, who was from the previous regime, that you want to get more touches to. I understand he's in a contract year, but you still need to use him to get better. And as Aldo mentions on the screen here, guys, I meant to say something about this a minute ago. Coming up later, I'll try to my best to answer you guys' questions. So keep them flowing. I see there's a list here, quite a few of them. So thank you guys for doing that. I'll try to get to your questions. And a lot of times Aldo will post your comments that you have, guys, on the screen here also, if you have some interesting statements, and I can bounce those ideas off as well and kind of give you my takes on those. And I appreciate when you guys do that. So feel free to help me drive the conversation. And I love when you guys bring up good points for me to get to. So, but just kind of going back to these issues with Waldron, like I said before, I do like the guy. I still think that he can get the job done. I still think that, it wasn't necessarily the wrong hire, which people will always jump to conclusions after 3 games. Say, oh my God, he's got to go. It's terrible already. It's like, come on, guys. It's been 3 games. Yes, it's bad. It's bad. I'm not going to deny that. It's been bad. But you got to give the guy a chance throughout a 17-game season to show that is he bad, or is it just like they're getting going? They're trying to figure it out. But again, it is a little concerning that it's taking this long to figure out your personnel. I mean, because I still don't think he understands his personnel that well, which is concerning. I mean, you're talking about this is probably why Gerald Everett has had as much snap share as he's had, because he knew him. He understood his game and what he could do. And he was trying to force feed him the ball early on in the season. That's another thing I didn't understand. So I just think they have to kind of experiment more with their other personnel and see if they can get something going more positively. Again, I think you can't just relegate Khalil Herbert to being a red zone back, and in the short yardage to goal situations. You got to get him more involved in the open, not the open field, but when you have more distance to go, give him an opportunity to shake off some big runs, pick up some first downs for you, because he will. He's shown he's capable of doing that. Now, a big part of that obviously is the blocking up front. The offensive line's got to, they got to do their jobs and block somebody, which has been an issue at times this year. It's surprising to me how some of these guys have played, to be honest with you. Now, like as we talked about earlier, Darnell Wright seems to have some kind of issue with his back. I don't know if that's been going on all season, but he has not displayed anywhere near the same kind of power as he has, as I mentioned before. But also, Tevin Jenkins, man, it looks like, unfortunately, the guy's just taking a step back. And I hate to say that because I love the dude and I really wanted to see him back. It just, you got to stay healthy, which he so far has done, but he had to have a decent season if he wanted to come back. And he really has kind of, unfortunately, taken a step back so far. So I'm really kind of hoping he turns it around, but it's just been kind of sad to see him fall off a little bit there. So, Aldo, would you put that comment from J2K back on the screen there? I was trying to get to that, but I lost it now. Well, 3.5 Houston here says Sean McVay in his presser said Sane Waldron is doing an excellent job in Chicago. And, obviously, there's some coach speak there. I'm sure, they're not going to tell you anything in regards to like, oh, he's doing terrible over there. It's just going to be, he probably does have some respect for him. But as J2K here says, if Morgan could coordinate Shelton into the weight room and cafeteria, that would solve a lot of problems. But yeah, Shelton, he had some issues definitely the first week of the season. In week 2, he didn't play all that great either. I felt like he was a little bit better this week, but the unfortunate, again, I'm a broken record here, but the unfortunate reality with Coleman Shelton is the guy just does not have the strength or the size to block as well as, a lot of centers in this league could. He's not going to hold up as well as a lot of guys, especially when he's facing these strong-ass DTs. In a one-on-one situation, he's probably toast. So, I just don't want to see him like it happened. I think it was the first game of the year where he's getting blown into Caleb's lap by a linebacker. It's like, come on, dude, you got to hold up better than that. But, he's just not. He's obviously not the long-term option. And we've talked about this before. I think Ryan Bates was the guy they wanted to be the center. He just didn't turn out to be that way. So here we are with Shelton because of Bates' injury. And that seems like it's an arthritic thing. So he's probably going to linger, which is another, I don't understand how this stuff happens. I mean, they just Ryan Poles really liked that guy because he tried to get him twice. And now it looks like at this point anyways, it's going to be one of those mistakes he made. So I hope that's not the case, but we got to get that guy back and healthy hope this year if they want to have him play center, which it doesn't look like is going to happen. So I just feel like, again, and I don't want to sound, again, I'm keep harping on this, but it's just a matter of you can't put your quarterback through situations where you're getting beat up because you're dropping him back so much because you can't protect him and because you're making him throw the ball 50 times a game. Can't do that to him. You got to run the ball. You just have to run the ball, and you have to have success doing it. So you got to find a way to scheme it up. Look, that's what coaching does. That's what good coaching does. And again, I think Sane Waldron is a good coach. I think he is capable of doing this. So he needs to. Look at what just happened 2 weeks ago with Green Bay. Everyone knew they were going to run the football because their starting quarterback was out and they had Malik Willis in. Everyone knew they were going to run the ball. They ran it over 50 times, and they had success freaking doing it. You know why? Because they have an excellent play caller and an excellent head coach named Matt LaFleur. So it can be done. You can find ways to get your run game going, even if the defense knows what you're doing. You just got to do it. You got to find a way to do it. You got to find a way to get you guys going. And they have guys who are talented enough to do it. So just get them involved and do it. I don't feel like it should be as complicated as it is. That's the one thing one of the things I don't like about Waldron's play calling is he just tries to do too much like fancy shit. And it's like, dude, you don't always have to do that. You don't have to dress it up so much, just show them what you're doing and execute. If your guys are good enough, they should be able to do that, which unfortunately so far they haven't been good enough to do it. So maybe he feels like he has to. But, look, they're good enough to where they can. They've shown ability to do it. Honestly, guys, the offensive line looked better this week, much better this week than they did the past week because they were terrible in week 2. But they got to, and like Torian says here, just keep it simple. Just do the basic. I 100% agree. You don't have to get super fancy. Now, obviously, all offensive minds are going to try to find ways to get guys open. They're going to try to find ways to exploit a defense. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that you have to do speed option on 4th and goal at the 1-yard line. That's what I'm saying. Okay. It's like that particular situation. Just pound the effing ball. You know what I mean? Just pound it. I don't care how you do it. Just pound it. So 3.5 makes a really good point here too. And this has been a talking point for in Chicago media forever. So this is nothing new, okay? But he mentions that we need to see Greg's point. He's talking about Greg Gabriel. And if you guys aren't familiar, Greg has a show here on the Barroom Network called Gabriel Talks Football, where he discusses, what's happened every week. And he talks about scouting and all kinds of things. It's a great show. You should check it out. But he's been talking about how we just, as a fan base and media, we have not been patient enough with the Bears process here. And he's been talking about the fact that we were going to see rookie struggles from Caleb early on, and I, for the most part, have always been on board with that too, because, if you look in the history of this league, how many CJ Strouds do we see? Not very many. That's why CJ Stroud is CJ Stroud. So the whole idea here that he's just going to come in and light the world on fire kind of seemed far-fetched from the beginning. However, we're all going to get optimism when Hard Knocks is going on and, we're seeing him make throws and stuff like that. We get excited. And so we probably get some hyperbolic ideas every once in a while, expectations once in a while. But once we simmer down, we have to kind of see that this is not a huge surprise here. And we do, in my opinion, we do need to have some patience, especially with Caleb. And maybe not as much with the running game as much as with Caleb. We got to give Caleb his patience. Obviously, he's a rookie. But I'm not going to have nearly as much patience with getting the run game fixed as I'm going to have with Caleb in his development, because they don't have as much time to get that going. Caleb has time to develop, and he's going to be a good player in this league. To me, he's showing a lot of signs. He looks really good. In my opinion, like I said, there's been some missed throws, some bad decisions, but those are all things you anticipate for a rookie quarterback. So I just overall impressions of the way he operates, the way he gets the ball out of his hands, most of his decision making, most of his accuracy, with the exception of a handful. Really, it was more than even a handful. There was several of them. Missed downfield opportunities in the early couple weeks, but he finally hit on a couple of them now this week. He threw a touchdown. He threw a couple touchdown passes. One was a really nice throw to Rome. So I just, I think, yeah, we have to show some patience with him. But as far as the running game is going, we got to get that going quickly. I mean, they got to find a way to do it. And again, as I said before, this defensive line for the Rams is not going to be an easy one to run against. So we have to find a way to we just have to find a way to execute better in the coming weeks. And this is a good quote here. I appreciate you putting this on the screen, Aldo. Adam Schefter said that Sane Waldron put everything on the board that he screwed up this week. He couldn't have been more transparent with the team than he was this week. See, I did not see that tweet earlier, and Tim reminded me of that. So I appreciate you putting that on the screen, Aldo. So that's interesting to me that and that's one thing I wanted to say about Sane Waldron that I was appreciative of in his press conference. And a few people, I think, have mentioned this in the past too now. I just like the way he took accountability. I like the way he stood up there and said, look, that starts with me. I can do this better. I can do that better. I got to have a better call there better. That speed option play, he took full accountability for us. Yeah, I got to have a better call there, basically, is what he said. Some of these other coaches would not have done that. We know that. We know they would. Last year, it was like trying to pull teeth, get Luke Getsy to take some accountability for his play calling. It was just like constant having, liking what he was seeing, liking the look or whatever it was. He liked the play call there. Just got to execute it better. Whatever the case may be, it was always something. It was never taking accountability for his own work there. So I did appreciate that Waldron did that he stood up there and he took accountability at the press conference. But I'm even more impressed by that tweet, that he stood up at a whiteboard in front of in a meeting with his team, and he said, look, this is where I can be better. I am super impressed by that. And I hope that what he does from that is not just show that he can be better in those areas and that he needs to be better and take accountability for it, but now be better. Now be better in those areas. Now show that you're learning something from that. Go do something with it. And Cliff mentions that he agrees with me that opponents often ignore the fakes and run their standard moves. Don't be too clever. That was an earlier point that I made about not trying to be as cute and dress things up quite as much. I love motion and I love, finding ways to get guys open, but it's like, again, speed option. I don't get that play call there on 4th and goal from the 1 yard line. I don't think anybody does. Adam Hope tweeted last week after the game that he thought that was the worst call he's ever seen since he's been covering a team. And that's saying something because we've said some pretty shit play calls before. So, I mean, gosh, I can't believe that call. And I don't understand. It still baffles me to this day how that happened. What was going on there? And you guys have probably heard about other people talking about this throughout the week as well from that play. Apparently, Caleb was asked if there was another call there that he can audible to. And I believe it was he that mentioned in his press conference that yes, there is. But by the time he got into the huddle, there was only like 10 seconds left on the play clock. They didn't really have time to get a different call in. So, and Waldron took accountability for that in his press conference. He's like, look, we got to get the play call out quicker. We got to get them out there quicker, get the process moving. Every second basically counts kind of thing. So again, I like the accountability. I want to see progress now, though. I want to see progress, especially in the run game. And Caleb is, again, he's not perfect either. He's got to clean up some shit. And but again, I'm so impressed with the way he has performed to this point, the way he has done things, because I don't think we're seeing a whole lot of the cadence issues at this point with him. There's been some false starts, but he seems in command of the offense, and he seems like he's seeing things pretty well. Something you guys should check out if you want to get more in depth about this stuff. You guys have heard me talk about the different quarterback breakdowns before, but there's some really good guys out there who are doing breakdowns right now, like Kurt Warner, Chase Daniel, and Tim Jenkins, as we've talked about before on the show. He was on CHGO, and I want to play a clip from him in a little bit here that Aldo's got, but they all have good quarterback breakdowns where and another one is JT O'Sullivan on his channel. They all have YouTube channels where they do breakdowns of all the big quarterbacks, really a lot of the younger guys, where they just kind of talk about what they're seeing from them, what they think they should be doing, where they could be better, what's good, what's bad. And they're all really, really good and informative. And what's interesting is that they all seem to have a different opinion. They all think different things. There's honestly, in my opinion, there's very few plays where they're all in unison on what they think about that play that they've shown, all the ones that are in mutual plays, I should say. So if you watch these guys and how they break things down, they don't all use every single throw or every single snap from Caleb. Some of these guys will just pick and choose a few of them. But again, when several of them of the mutual plays are not, you're not seeing exactly the same thing as these other guys who have played quarterback in the league, then that should tell you something, that it's not all this apples to orange, or apples to apples, I should say. It's apples to oranges. Everybody's different. So, and George mentions that 4-0 in the preseason is not the same as 4-0 in the regular season. It doesn't mean anything, which I totally agree with that. So, but in any case, here's that clip from Tim Jenkins from he was on a 670 score with an interview that he did, and he was talking about Waldron's play call. And I've kind of talked about it a little bit here so far, but I wanted you guys to get a picture from a guy who's played in the league, understands quarterback play, and what he's thinking, because he runs an offense too, whether, even though it's his son, his young son's team, but the guy understands NFL football and he understands offensive football. So here's this clip.
We had some pretty egregious, I think, play calling issues. I just think maybe time to panic a little bit with the staff. I don't think like full blown, hey, run everybody out of town. I do think it's like, man, we got to have our ears up and start looking around. But I don't really walk away from the tape thinking, man, I think Caleb played horribly. I see him doing a lot at the line of scrimmage too. Like I see him re-mic IDing. I see him killing, right? Getting from one play to another play. I see him doing all this stuff. And then it's still like, hey, we kill. And then we run the ball and it's a 2-yard gain. So to me, it's like, I'm not as worried about Caleb, because you wouldn't keep letting him kill the play if he was doing it incorrectly. What I'm more worried about is like, we had a look that we said, hey, Caleb, kill this play to this if we get this look. And we schemed it up so perfect that we gained 2 yards. Like, that's the concern for me.
Okay. So, excuse me. So a lot there. First of all, I thought it was kind of interesting that he said, I'm not saying fire everybody right now, but I'd be like, keeping my ears up, like looking around kind of thing. That was kind of interesting to me. I don't think they're quite at that point yet. I do think that there's obviously some glaring issues there from what they've done offensively. But again, they got to give Waldron a chance here. This is the first time he's ever had a rookie quarterback. And I don't think the quarterback's playing all that badly. But everything else, I think, this is another thing I've been kind of thinking about lately. And it goes both for Caleb and it goes for Waldron as well. I feel like part of the reason that, I'll speak on Caleb first. I feel like part of the reason why he was missing some of those throws, the downfield shots and stuff, that we're all going, man, he hit those in college. He normally makes that throw. He's going to make that throw 9 times out of 10. When we say that, I think part of the reason he was missing some of those throws is because he was so laser focused going in as a rookie to the other stuff that he had to get acclimated to, like learning the cadence, learning how to operate NFL offense, learning how to get in the play call, learning how to memorize 7-word play calls instead of 1-word, signs they're holding up from the sideline. Okay. That's a transition for people. And not only just that, but he also has to learn some of the things you can and can't do as a quarterback in the NFL. So that's another thing on the field he's trying to figure out. Okay. He's trying to figure out how to read defenses in real time, pre and post snap, because they change a lot more in the NFL. Okay. So that's another thing. You're talking about all this stuff he's trying to get better at and learn about in the NFL level. I think was hindering him from hitting some of those layups that he was accustomed to doing because he was focusing so much on the other stuff. I think the same thing is going on with Waldron to a different degree. I feel like he's been paying so much attention to trying to develop his rookie quarterback and make sure that he is in a good spot to have success, trying to scheme up Keenan Allen a ton of times in the first game, and trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly, a lot of times. And obviously he's got a pretty low time to throw. He has in the last couple of games now. It's been good. So the issue to me, it's like, I think he's taken a lot of focus to doing that, Waldron, and he's kind of taken away from his other responsibilities as an offensive coordinator, a little bit of his focus, I think. So again, it's week 3. They're going to need some time to kind of figure it out and get it together. But I totally agree with that. And I'm sorry. What I meant to say was that I feel like it's going to take time. And they got to get into a rhythm here. But again, I have a little bit of concern about how much time it's taking to figure out his personnel, talking Waldron. And I agree with, some of the points about some of the play calling too. It's been suspect. But there's also been some good calls too and some good designs. So I want to see it progress. I want to see more of what he did in Seattle, the success he had in Seattle. And I think they can. They just, again, they got to, number one, I mean, it all starts up front. We've talked about this a lot in the past couple weeks. You got to block better up front. You got to protect better up front. That's how everything gets going. And then you can't, again, I've said it's like, 10 times already tonight, but you cannot run speed option on 4th and goal at the 1 yard line. You cannot do that. So again, these are, to me, it's like, it's things that can be corrected. So let's correct it. Let's get more consistent on offense, run the football, open up your passing game. Quarterback did throw 363 yards this week, which is damn good for a rookie, even though he had 2 interceptions. But it's, to me, that's a good trend for a quarterback. So he's moving the right direction, I think, as a rookie. So we'll see what happens next week. It's going to be a tough game. Got a little bit of time left, so I want to get to some of you guys' questions in here. We appreciate you getting them in. Foster wants to know if is Waldron forcing Caleb's development. I feel like I kind of just hit on that a little bit. I don't know if forcing it is the word I would use, Foster. I think he's – that's an interesting way to put it, though. Is he forcing his development? I don't know if it's so much that they're forcing it, but I think they're trying so hard to make sure that they are successful with it that they're pressing themselves, I think, is what's going on. So I really like that you put it that way, because it made me think about it a little bit more. I think they're pressing themselves a little bit because of the fact that they're trying so hard to be successful with his development. So yeah, that's an interesting point, and it makes me kind of think about that a little bit more now. Also, yeah, I think there's a little bit, again, I think because there's so much expectation from the outside too. Everybody wants them to be successful, and I think that they are getting a little bit, maybe in their own heads, a little bit about it, to the point where there might be some fear if we fail, kind of thing, that they're doing everything they can to avoid that. So, I mean, that's a good thing, but also you gotta have faith that you're going to get it done, and you got to have success doing it, is the bottom line. So we'll see how it goes. But I think it's only week 3. Like I said, I think they're going to start trying to get it. I think they're going to start figuring it out, at least who they are as an offense. And we'll see the direction that they head. If they're still going to be a pass first team later on in the season, it's kind of starting to trend that way right now. But I do want to see if they can get successful run of football again, because if they can, that's really good for the offense. So J2K here is saying he thought Waldron going 3-4 wide receiver sets was forcing Caleb to develop. Then Caleb passed 52 times. So I agree. Yeah, it's like you're running a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. But I kind of go back to my earlier point when I'm talking about that. I still feel like that's a little bit of Waldron trying to figure out his personnel still. The fact he's running those 3-4 wide receiver sets, he's probably thinking of it like, well, I've got these 3 receivers who could all be number 1s in their prime, and they're all pretty damn good right now. So I want to get them on the field as much as I can together. But he's also trying to figure out that he's also trying to use a guy he understands in Gerald Everett too much in the first game. Cole Kmet saw less snaps because of that. And he's also trying to figure out which backs to use, and they tried to use DeAndre Swift too much early. So again, I think a part of that is trying to get, figure out his personnel a little bit better. And get a good mix and get a good feel for what guys are actually good at. And really, honestly, like I said, he should have a better idea of that from watching film. But that's just my opinion. But whatever. So that's just kind of how I feel about that. So Cliff wants to know, what do I think about polls and players like Tevin calling out the coaching decisions? So that's an interesting point there too. If anybody doesn't know what Cliff is talking about here, so after the game, Tevin Jenkins was asked in the locker room something along the lines of like, what did you think about, I can't remember exactly what the question is, but the way he responded was along the lines of, we just get the play call and we run the play kind of thing. We just do what we're asked to do. And it wasn't a whole lot of like didn't sound like a whole lot of confidence in what they were being asked to do. So that's what he's talking about with that one. And then I believe there was another, who was the other player? It was the center. I'm blanking on his name now. Shelton. He said, I think it was after the game, same thing. Somebody asked him about that play, and he said something along the lines of, obviously not a great look for that, talking about the play I've been talking about all night here so far, that speed option at the goal line. So the way I feel about that is, are they calling him out? I don't know if they're necessarily calling him out, but I do think it's a matter of like also trying to keep him accountable a little bit, which is interesting because they clearly didn't like the call themselves, or they wouldn't have said something about it. So that, I think that there is something there. And I think, again, though, I was proud of the way Waldron came out and held so much accountability, both to the media at the presser and apparently behind closed doors, as Schefter reported, in that meeting room with the whiteboard showing everybody where he can be better. I think that's impressive. And I think that, again, though, as I said before, now you got to show it. Now you got to do it. Don't just don't just say that you mean it, that you want to be better and you can be better. Go be better. So, and Foster, thank you for the quote here. What Tevin actually said was, we are executing the plays that are called. So, with a cold stare, he says. So, yeah, that was it is definitely interesting that they're willing to come out and say that stuff. But again, Waldron, took the high road and took accountability. So I hope that they just learn from it more so than anything. I just want them to learn from it and play better from it. So that's how I feel. But Aldo here says, how much responsibility does Chris Morgan take with the poor running game? This is his first year's running game quarter. And I think you hit the nail on the head here, Aldo. And I really should have mentioned this earlier. Chris Morgan, if you guys aren't familiar, he's been the offensive line coach since Eberflus got here. He was hired with Luke Getsy, and the staff retained him. He was one of only two coaches, along with Jim Dre, the tight ends coach, who was retained by this offensive staff. So they thought highly of him. And obviously it was because of the development that he put forth in guys like Braxton Jones and some of the depth pieces that they've had. Darnell Wright, the work he's done with him. So I think they liked what he's done so well that they obviously promoted him to run game coordinator this year. Well, as you guys have seen, they have not run the ball particularly well. And I think he does have to shoulder some load for that. I think he absolutely has to shoulder some load for that because that is his job, to be the run game coordinator. And if your run game isn't doing well, why? Why isn't it doing well? What's going on? What are we missing here? And a lot of it is the blocking. Now, you can make the argument that DeAndre Swift has had some boneheaded runs too, which he has. But at the end of the day, you have to block in the run game, and they're not doing that very well. So, again, he does have to shoulder some load on that, and he does have to take some accountability with that. He better show some signs of life with that too. He better get that going in the right direction. But I do like that Waldron took accountability for the issues that they had. So hopefully it's a concerted effort here from everyone as a team to get this on track and they get better. McFack says we should just fire Chris Morgan, which I don't think you can demote him from run game coordinator midseason, but they should. I don't want to fire him. I feel like he's been a pretty good O-line coach, but I don't think he should have been a run game coordinator. Vegeta Sama says, Caleb seems like the type to get better the more he does something. Just look at the week 1 to 3. He looks comfortable now. No doubt he'll get it together. And that's basically what I was saying earlier. I agree with you, Vegeta. I think he's obviously gotten better if you've watched him play. If you've actually watched the tape and paid attention to the tape and not just read the narratives that national media pundits and fans will say across the team and whatever, and you're actually watching the tape, you can see he's looked better. He's improved. And he does some things that, number one, other guys just can't do. And he does some other things that are very, very advanced for a rookie quarterback. I mean, as Jenkins said in that clip we showed you guys earlier, he's calling stuff out at the line of scrimmage. He's killing plays. He's learning. He's making changes. He's doing everything that an advanced quarterback would do basically in the huddle. So he's making throws too. He's making big time throws. He's missing some big ones too, but it's coming, and he's been hitting a couple of them already. So I think he's improving, and I really like the trajectory he's going down. Torian said this feels like a game where Stafford will throw 2 picks, but then throw the game-winning touchdown. Let's hope not, Torian, because I don't want to see that happen on Sunday. The Bears really need to get back on track. They got to win. They got to win a ball game. They got to get back to 500, especially if they want to have some kind of playoff hopes. Because again, this is the early part of the season where this is the easier part of their schedule. If you look at it, I mean, especially right now with the way Minnesota's been playing, man, I didn't think they were going to be that good at all, but they've been great so far this year. And Kevin O'Connell, another really good coach so far. I mean, it's like the Bears just keep missing out on these big time offensive minds, and they end up going to other places and usually division rivals to kick our ass. So hopefully we can start to turn it around here, because we need to get back on the right track and start to play better football, especially, like I said, especially offensively in the run game, so they can kind of, compete for this division. So anyways, guys, we're out of time here. Again, I really appreciate you guys being here. I know I was kind of off track tonight. I was kind of going in different directions and didn't exactly have a clear line of vision for you guys there, but it's a little harder to do without Tim here to give me his thoughts on different things. And I do. It's unfortunate that he wasn't here tonight, but again, though, I really appreciate you guys being here. It helps to drive this channel, and I appreciate you guys helping drive my conversation as well. You guys all have great comments. It's a lot harder to read them when I'm the only one talking. So I'm sorry for you guys that I didn't get to, and anything I wasn't able to read off or answer your questions. But I appreciate you guys being here as always. We're on every Friday night for you guys. Hopefully Tim's Power will be on next Friday, so you can catch him on the show as well. And I appreciate your compliment, Tori. He says I did a great job tonight, and I really do. I'm very thankful for you guys. So, again, guys, real quick, I just want to ask before I get out of here that you, as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, hit the bell, get the notifications. And as you give us all a follow on Twitter, I'm @_Jeff Willis. Aldo is @Barroom Network. He's our wonderful executive producer. He's the man. If you guys don't follow Aldo, you definitely need to. He pumps out fantastic content every single week. So we really appreciate him and his contribution. And as I get out here again, I just want to mention that Tim's Twitter handle is @TimWillis24. So give us all a follow, and we'll see you guys next week. Bear down.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.